This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And yes, another game week is done and dusted. Game week 6 wrapped up on a Monday night with a game at the Hill Dickinson between Everton and West Ham. Hopefully you didn't have too much riding on that one, but if you did, fingers crossed, you owned either Michael Keane or Jared Bowen. We'll get to that game and all the others in just a moment. We'll also have a Game Week 7 preview and we'll have those all-important waiver picks as well. Before we get started, though, just a reminder, if you don't already, to subscribe to the pod so you never miss an episode. It would also be great if you could get in touch with us on any of our social media channels. We're at FPL Draft Zone on Instagram and on X. We're also on Blue Sky, or if you want to get in touch with us on the traditional email route, our details are scrolling along the bottom of the screen if you happen to be watching us on YouTube. It would also be great if you could give us a 5-star review if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, or some words of encouragement on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. And of course, if you are now watching with us on YouTube, I believe the thing to do is like and subscribe. So yes, we are going to get to Game Week 7 in a little while, but first let's take a look back at what happened in Game Week 6. And it all kicked off on Saturday, the 27th of September, 2025, with the lunchtime kickoff between Brentford and Manchester United. And it was another bad day at the office for Ruben Amorim. It finished 3-1 to Brentford. Igor Thiago, the man of the moment, he scored twice for the Bees as they put Manchester United to the sword. He's got 4 goals in 6 games for the season now, having missed a large majority of last season with an injury. He did arrive at Brentford with quite a decent reputation from his time at his previous club, was the UEFA Conference League Young Player of the Year in his previous club, and he's starting to show signs that he's a finisher at Brentford as well. Yehor Yarmolenko did well as well, the midfielder, walked away with an assist, 7 points, and he has now hit DEFCON 3 times this season. As for Manchester United, things seem to be going from bad to worse, but words of encouragement for their attacking duo of Bryan Mbeumo and Cunha. And Mbeumo has only 1 goal this season, but it could be more. He's got an XGI of 3.2 for the season so far. And Cunha has no attacking returns since signing from Wolves, but in his Game Week 6 XGI was 0.45, and his total XGI from 3 games for the club is 1.5. So those two certainly showing signs that things could be on the horizon, getting a little better for them. But right now, it is not going the way that Ruben Amorim or Manchester United fans would like. Another defeat for them. And it was another defeat for Chelsea as well at Stamford Bridge. They were beaten 3-1 by Brighton and Hove Albion. The game turning on a red card for Chalobah. Danny Welbeck off the bench to score 2 goals in just 23 minutes. Maxim de Kuyper, who arrived at Brighton with his reputation for being a bit of a menace in the final third, and he got his first goal for the Seagulls. He's got a total XGI now of 1.1 from just 3 starts. He did not start this one, a late substitute. I suspect he will be starting Brighton's next game. And a word for Enzo, who scored for Chelsea from an XGI of 1.5. He's got 3.9 XGI for the season now, which is the second most of all midfielders in the entire game, behind another Manchester United midfielder, not Cunha, not Bryan Mbeumo, but Bruno Fernandes. It finished Crystal Palace 2, the champions Liverpool 1 at Selhurst Park. Ismaila Sarr has now got 3 goals in 4 games from an XG of 2.8. Crystal Palace racked up 3.53 XG against the champions. They are now 18 games unbeaten. If they go one more game unbeaten, it is a club record. They are the only undefeated team left in the Premier League, and Liverpool, well, the gap at the top is close to 2 points as a result of this defeat and Arsenal's win at Newcastle. But Ryan Gravenberch continued his sublime start to the season. He's got 4 attacking returns now in just 5 games, and that all from a total XGI for the season of 0.7. So I suspect, a bit like Martin Zubimendi the other week, we are having to look at Ryan Gravenberch through a different lens and say 4 attacking returns in 5 is great, but from an XGI of 0.7, it's surely not sustainable. Leeds United 2, Bournemouth 2 was the final score at Ellen Road. Dominic Calvert-Lewin seems to have cemented that starting place up front for Leeds United. This was his third successive start, 0.70 XG he got against the Cherries. He's got 2 attacking returns for the season. He is a player to keep an eye on if you are in need of that third striker slot. Bournemouth defenders, though, deserve a shout out here. Yes, they conceded 2 goals, but they are DEFCON monsters. Senesi is now the only defender who's hit DEFCON every single week in the first 6 weeks of the season. And in this one, Diakite and Trufer also hit the DEFCON threshold. It was also a game that saw Justin Cliver return to Bournemouth's starting 11 for the first time this season. He played 59 minutes before he was replaced by Tavernier. Didn't do a huge amount, but he is the sort of player that if you look at his form last season, could hit some pretty high heights. So if he's available on the waivers, he is one to think about in the short and the long term. Manchester City 5, Burnley 1 was the final score at the Etihad. It was a game where if you owned Mateus Nunes, you were laughing all the way to the FPL bank. 12 points for him, a goal and an assist. And now with the injury to Kusanov, you would have to assume he is the starting right back. Rico Lewis may have a say in that, but I think the shirt is Nunes's for now. Jeremy Doku put in another excellent display as well. He walked away with 10 points, 2 assists. He's got 4 assists in 5 starts now, and Pepper's sung his praises over the last few days as well. Seems to be getting that final end product as well as his dribbly skills, which we've all seen many times before. And Jadon Anthony has got 5 attacking returns in 6 games now, despite playing for a team like Burnley. He is the second highest scoring midfielder in the game, and he continued his fine form against City, albeit in that 5-1 defeat. Sunderland continued their fine form as well, and Robin Ruffs continued his fine form in a 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest. Sunderland have conceded just 4 goals all season. I don't think anyone thought they would be one of the stronger defensive units, but they certainly seem to be. And Robin Ruffs is a major part of why they are so strong defensively. 10 points for him at the weekend. He made 6 saves. He is the highest scoring keeper in FPL for saves. 8 points in game week 1, 4 saves. 1 point in game week 2, 1 save. 8 points in game week 3, 3 saves. Game week 4, it was 10 points and 6 saves. Game week 5, 2 points and 1 save. And then this week, 10 points and 6 saves. I think I'm wrong there. I don't think he is the highest scoring keeper in terms of saves, but he is the highest scoring keeper. Vicario, I believe, is the highest scoring keeper in terms of saves. Omar Alderete also had a very good week for Sunderland. He walked away with 17 points after hitting DEFCON and scoring a goal. So Sunderland's backline is certainly worth considering, despite the fact that they are a newly promoted side. It seems that this year, at least, newly promoted sides are hitting a little bit different. Spurs 1, Wolves 1 in North London. Spurs rescuing a point very late on through Paulinho. Pape Matar Sarr got his 3rd attacking return of the season, having come off the bench and started playing in the number 10 role. Brennan Johnson, if you own him, I suspect it's time to get rid if you haven't already. A 28-minute cameo for him in this one. 3 games without a start now, and this is all before Kolo Muani returns from what seems like the longest dead leg injury in the history of football. On Sunday, Aston Villa got their season up and running with a 3-1 win over Fulham. Emi Buendia was the hero. He came on, I should say, at half-time for Harvey Elliott. Walked away with 12 points, a goal and an assist for him. And a shout-out as well for Evan Gassand, who we will be talking about later. His minutes continue to increase under Unai Emery. 82 minutes he got on Sunday. Didn't create a lot, just 0.01 XGI, but he did complete the most dribbles. He did win the most duels. And the signs are that his Villa career is starting slowly to take off. Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2 was the final score at St James's Park in a very dramatic game in the northeast. Declan Rice walked away with 9 points, courtesy of a fine assist for Mikel Merino's goal. He's got 3 assists for the season now, quietly racking up those points. And Leo Trossard had his 2nd successive start in the Arsenal shirt. Across those 2 games, he's racked up 0.42 XGI. And we've already spoken on previous pods about how Leo Trossard needs limited minutes to make an impact. Was by far from a regular first team starter week in, week out last season. Still ended the season with 16 attacking returns. So if you're in need of a fifth midfielder and you're happy to accept the fact that they may not start week in, week out, but there's every chance they will continue to return, then Leo Trossard is your man. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Everton won, West Ham won at the Hill Dickinson. Michael Keane getting an 11-point return, 1 goal, 1 bonus, and hitting the DEFCON threshold as well. Joey O'Brien was the sort of more guaranteed starter in this one, with Branthwaite close to a return. Of course, O'Brien had a lower upside. Keane always a threat from set pieces, and as it proved, Jack Grealish did not return in this one, but he did create more chances than any other player. So his form is still good. And if owners of Grealish in your league are tiring of him, may well be worth exploring a potential deal, particularly now Kieran Dewsbury Hall is suspended for the weekend. The big headline from Game Week 6 is the same headline from Game Week 5, really. Very limited defensive clean sheets, just 1 clean sheet all weekend, and that was for Sunderland at the City Ground against Nottingham Forest. So that big defensive, going big at the back, maybe it is over before it's really begun. Also want to look at defensive contributions. We've got the top 20 players who have hit the most defensive contributions this season, the people who have achieved the most defensive contributions, not necessarily hit the threshold. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the top 10 here, and on the left-hand side is the number of times they have hit the threshold. So Caicedo of Chelsea has had more defensive contributions than any other player, 85, and he has returned on 4 occasions as a result of those defensive contributions. Senesi has a 100% hit rate, 6 games, 6 returns. He's got 81 defensive contributions. And then 7 of the top 10 in the defensive contributions chart are midfielders. The top 20 is split evenly between defenders and midfielders, but the top 10, 7 of them are midfielders. The top 10, if you're not watching, Caicedo, Senesi, Anderson, Xhaka, Garner, Tyler Adams, Virgil van Dijk, Szoboszlai, James Tarkowski, and Josh Cullen of Burnley. The second set of 10 here, Anderson of Fulham has had 5 defensive contribution returns. Also in the final, sort of 11 to 20, Alderete has had 4 for Sunderland. 5 out of the top 7 highest DEFCON winners are defenders, and only 3 of the entire top 20 come from what you would call traditional top 4 clubs, Caicedo, Van Dijk, and Szoboszlai. So in terms of those sort of players, you're looking at kind of mid to lower league teams. Burnley have got quite a few in. Sunderland, Brentford, Wolves as well have got some, Fulham. So you're sort of beginning to see a little bit of a theme, really, that it's not necessarily the big boys who are going to be returning DEFCON points week in, week out. It's more likely to be centre-backs, and it's more likely to be mid-table sides. Let's take a look at the midweek fixtures then, because that will, of course, always impact who you're going for on the waivers ahead of Game Week 7. On Tuesday, Chelsea are in action against Jose Mourinho's Benfica at Stamford Bridge. Spurs go to Bodo Glimt, and Galatasaray is a trip for Liverpool that they're going to have to face. They go all the way to Turkey on Tuesday night. On Wednesday, Arsenal have a home game against the Greek side Olympiacos. Manchester City go to the Principality to play Monaco, and Newcastle travel to Union Saint-Gilloise. And then on Thursday, we have Europa League and Conference League action as well, which means that Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, and Crystal Palace are all in action. Aston Villa go to Rotterdam to face Feyenoord. Nottingham Forest look to win their first game under Big Ange in his 6th game in charge. They're at home to FC Midtjylland. And Crystal Palace travel to Dynamo Kiev, looking to make it 19 games unbeaten and break a club record. Let's look at Game Week 7 then, and that one all kicks off on Friday night. Friday the 3rd of October 2025 will be the day that at the Vitality, Bournemouth take on Fulham. Bournemouth have won 3 of the last 5 meetings between these two, and Antoine Semenyo got the winner last season in a 1-0 win. In terms of waiver options from this one, we talked earlier about Bournemouth's defensive solidity, particularly when it comes to DEFCON, where Alex Jimenez is starting as their right back week in, week out now. Not necessarily finishing the games at the moment as he eases his way into that Bournemouth starting 11, but he is starting. He has taken a booking in every single game he's played so far, but he is by far the easiest route into their back line. He got 5 DEFCON against Leeds in 72 minutes. If Diakite is free, obviously prioritise him, but Jimenez is a very able deputy. Justin Kluivert, we mentioned, got his first start of the season against Leeds, as did Amin Adli playing on the wing. Now, those two are both rotation risks with the likes of Marcus Tavernier and David Brooks in good form. I do think Kluivert will cement his place in the first team sooner rather than later. But right now, it is a roll of the dice. You either get him in early and hope for the best, particularly in a game against Fulham. I'm sure he will get minutes. Or you play it safe and you avoid for now. But of course, then you risk the chance of another manager snapping him up. As for Fulham, we know that Muniz is not going to be playing until after the international break. Raul Jimenez started against Aston Villa, did score, then limped off injured. If he's declared fit, he will absolutely start. So keep an eye on the press conferences for news on him. If he doesn't, Adama Traore started up front against Villa in Jimenez's absence. He will probably continue in that role if Jimenez is not fit. And a word as well for Harry Wilson, who has started the last 3 for Fulham and racked up 0.71 XGI. Always good for a goal, always good for something from a set piece as well. So if you think Fulham can go to Bournemouth and get something, Wilson could be a decent shout if you're in need of a midfield option. It's Leeds United against Spurs on Saturday lunchtime at Ellen Road. Spurs have won 4 of these games in a row now, scoring 16 goals in the process, an average of 4 goals a game against Leeds over their last 4 games. Last time they met at Ellen Road, it was 4-1 to Spurs with Pedro Porro among the scorers for the North Londoners. Leeds, well, they drew against Bournemouth, and Brendan Aronson is a decent shout as a midfielder if you want to weigh into their side. He's got 1.45 XGI for the season so far. He has racked up more XGI than any other player at Leeds United. And their run is not awful after Spurs, a trip to Burnley and a home game against West Ham to come. And we mentioned Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. Seems to have won that starting spot up front for Leeds. He missed some very good chances against Bournemouth, but he got in the positions to miss them. So if nothing else, that's something, isn't it, Dom? Destiny Udogie started his second game for Spurs in the draw with Wolves. If you fancy some defensive action from Spurs, he is probably the easiest way into that back line. Get him now as your 5th option and see if he gets another start in this one. If he does, I think it's safe to say he will be a regular going forward. And we spoke about Kolo Muani's mysterious dead leg, which has kept him out ever since he signed for the club. Let's see if he's involved against Bodo Glimt. If he isn't, I would expect him to be at least on the bench for this one. Arsenal, well, they look to follow up their win over Newcastle with a victory against Nuno's side, West Ham United, who travelled to the Emirates. West Ham have won on their last 2 trips to North London. They won 1-0 last season, courtesy of a goal from Jared Bowen. We spoke about Leo Trossard earlier. You'd have to look at him now and say if Martin Odegaard is not deemed fit to start this one, he is probably going to get a 3rd start in a row. He's scored in 2 of his last 3 games against West Ham. He does have huge impact from minimal minutes for Arsenal, and the Gunners are now entering a very nice run of fixtures. After West Ham, they go to Fulham. They have a home game against Crystal Palace, which is certainly not easy, but then it's trips to Burnley and Sunderland. So you look at someone like Trossard and you think he will play plenty of minutes across those games, and you'd certainly expect him to get a couple of returns during that run as well. Kai Havertz is one, not for now, but for after the international break. This is the final weekend of fixtures before the international break. So if you think that there's going to be a good couple of weeks for him to get back on grass and start playing, he's not going to get starts immediately after the international break. But if you do want a high upside 3rd option up front, Kai Havertz could be worth getting in very early and holding before any of your rivals can snap him up. As for West Ham, you have to factor in the Nuno factor now. Did very well with Nottingham Forest last year, and he did it built on a strong defensive backline. Max Kilman hit DEFCON on Monday against Everton. He would have got 28 additional points last season had DEFCON existed. So if you want a route into their backline, maybe not for this game, but going forward, he is probably the one to get. Konstantinov Mavropanos partnered him at centre-back against Everton. He was at fault for the goal, but he was preferred to Todibo. So you would have to assume he's going to be first choice going forward. He travels to his former club on Saturday, having been a former graduate at Arsenal. West Ham's run after the Gunners is not bad. Brentford at home, Leeds away, and Burnley at home in 3 of their next 4. So if you do think Nuno can replicate his sort of defensive solidity at West Ham, then perhaps now is the time to make a move for their defensive backline. Of course, if Jeff is free, he would be the first choice from an attacking perspective. But Max Kilman, certainly a safe pair of hands from a DEFCON perspective. It's Manchester United against Sunderland at Old Trafford. It's the first meeting between these sides since 2017. Manchester United have won 3 of the last 4 games between these two sides and 6 of the last 7 on their own patch at Old Trafford. Amad Diallo missed game week 6 for personal reasons. As a result of missing that defeat to Brentford, his stock has probably risen. He's got 1 assist so far from 2 XGI, but in the absence of Mazraoui, who is injured, and Diallo, who played despite suffering from a muscle injury, you would have to assume Diallo will start this one, and it's not a terrible fixture. It feels like a must-win fixture for Ruben Amorim. As for Sunderland, Robin Roofs is surely now the best keeper in the game outside of David Raya to own. 3rd most saves of all goalkeepers. First was Dubravka, not Vicario, as I mentioned earlier. Vicario is 2nd. Sunderland defenders, also worth looking at. Alderate has hit DEFCON 4 times. Mukulele 3 times. Both of them have looked very solid defensively and picking up lots of defensive contributions. And would it surprise you if Sunderland went to Manchester United, this Manchester United, and got a result? It certainly wouldn't surprise me. It would probably be the final nail in the coffin for Ruben Amorim. No, the evening kickoff on Saturday night at 5:30 BST is Chelsea taking on Liverpool. Chelsea have barely any defenders available for this one. There's also doubts over several of their more exciting attacking options. Liverpool have won 3 of the last 4 meetings between these two. Chelsea did win this fixture last season, though 3-1 with Enzo and Cole Palmer among the scorers. Estevao played 63 minutes against Brighton, got 0.20 XGI in that time. He, if he starts, is likely to be up against either Kirkes or Robertson. Only 1 assist so far from 2 XGI, but I do feel like he is a solid option, particularly in the absence of Cole Palmer and with doubts now about João Pedro as well. Let's see what Chelsea's lineup looks like in the Champions League in midweek. And Andre Santos has started the last 2 games for the Blues. He got 10 goals and 4 assists on loan at Strasbourg last season. And with doubts over Pedro and Caicedo, and unfortunately also Santos right now, keep an eye out for the latest news, because either of those could be pretty solid options, Estevao and Santos. Jarrell Hato started at the back against Brighton. And when it was 11v11 before Chalobah got sent off, Chelsea had only given up 0.01 XG against the Seagulls, which it doesn't take me to tell you is pretty good. If they do that against Liverpool, there's every chance they'll get a result. And I think there's every chance that Hato will start again in this one, given the lack of alternatives for Chelsea. As for Liverpool, Dominic Szoboszlai has played 90 minutes in every single game week for Liverpool. He played number 10 against Crystal Palace, racked up 0.45 XGI, and he actually scored in a 4-1 win against Chelsea back in 2024. So if you want to root into that Liverpool midfield, Szoboszlai is probably available in a lot of leagues and is probably a better bet even than someone like Ryan Gravenberch, if you believe in underlying stats and positional preferences. It's Aston Villa taking on Burnley at Villa Park. Villa have won 3 of the last 4 meetings, drawing the other. Emi Buendia and Matty Cash have both scored 2 goals across those last 4 fixtures. And of course, Emi Buendia comes into this one in excellent form. He was a game changer against Fulham after coming off the bench. And Burnley have the Premier League so far this season, 12.3 XGC racked up to this point, which means they should be conceding more than 2 goals a game. And Emi Buendia will fancy his chances, I'm sure, of continuing his fine form in this one. Mentioned Evan Gassand earlier as well. His minutes are increasing. 0.45 XGI for the season is not great, but it has come in limited minutes, and he is playing in a new country for a new club with new teammates. Started the last 2 games, and after this one, the fixtures are not so good for Villa. Spurs away, Manchester City at home, and Liverpool away. So if you do fancy a bit of Gesand action and think that he may get off the mark against Burnley, then make a move for him this week. Matt Cash, also worth an option here for Villa, because Burnley, as well as having the worst XGC, have the lowest XG in the league. So there is clean sheet potential for Villa in this one. And of course, Cash also offers the added bonus, as we saw at the weekend, of attacking return potential. It's Everton against Crystal Palace at the Hill Dickinson. Everton are unbeaten in their last 9 meetings with Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace are unbeaten all season long. Everton did do the double over Oliver Glasner's side last season, winning both fixtures by a score of 2-1. James Garner is the man that no one's talking about, but perhaps they should be. The former Manchester United midfielder has more points than any other Everton player. Yes, that's right. More than Tarkowski, more than Jack Grealish, more than Dewsbury Hall. 2 attacking returns for the season and an assist on Monday night. He's hit DEFCON 3 times as well. A jack of all trades for James Garner. So if you do need a midfielder who is a safe bet, then perhaps Garner's the man for you. One slightly more exciting option, if you're looking for a more attack-minded midfielder, is Jeremy Pino, who was excellent against Liverpool, could easily have scored, finished with 0.37 XGI. He has not yet returned in any of his first 4 games for Palace, but 1.5 XGI suggests that returns are imminent. And of course, if you can find a route into that Crystal Palace backline, then get it done. And Tyrick Mitchell probably represents the best route into that backline. He hit DEFCON against Liverpool for the 2nd time this season. And of course, they are a very solid side defensively. At St James's Park, Big Ange faces a big test as he goes to Newcastle with his Nottingham Forest side. The Toon have won 3 of the last 4 meetings between these two sides. They won this fixture 4-3 last season as well, with Jacob Murphy on target. Forest won at St James's Park in the 2023-2024 season, though. And in that one, former Newcastle striker Chris Wood scored a hat-trick. I'm sure Ange would take that this season. Don't think it's going to happen, though. Newcastle have some doubts over Tino Livramento, who limped off injured in what looked like a fairly bad one against Arsenal. That means that defensive options for Newcastle could be about to change. Kieran Trippier did not start against the Gunners. He has started 4 of their first 6 Premier League games. I suspect he will now be their first choice right back going forward. There's also a chance that Lewis Hall may now find a way into this side. Dan Burns started at left back against Arsenal to make space for Thor. I think most Newcastle fans would say that Lewis Hall is one of their best 4 defenders and certainly their best left back. Perhaps they will only play him in home games to begin with against sides that they'd expect to beat. But I do think this is a game they would expect to win, given the way Forest are playing and given Ange's track record. I think this is a good option now for Lewis Hall to start in this one. And Newcastle have got the 2nd best XGC in the league. So they are a solid defensive unit. So if there's any way you can get any of their options at the back, then get it done. As for Nottingham Forest, James McAtee had his first start against Sunderland. He was linked with Spurs when Ange was there. Ange obviously liked him. He didn't have much of an impact in that game, but perhaps it's a sign of things to come that he started. And Elliot Anderson, if he is still free in any of your leagues, then absolutely sign him quicker than you can say the words Elliot Anderson. 1 assist so far from 1.4 XGI, 0.49 XGI from that has come in the last 2 games under Big Ange. So he is obviously getting forward a lot more under Postecoglou. He's also got 3 DEFCON in a row. So he could be a big beneficiary from the Australians' appointment. It's Wolves against Brighton at Molineux. Brighton have only lost 1 of the last 9 meetings between these sides. And last season, they met each other 3 times. And every single time, Brighton scored at least 2 goals in each game. And Danny Welbeck scored in 2 of those 3 games. And of course, he also scored 2 at the weekend. If you fancy a bit of Wolves action, John Arias had a decent game against Spurs, played the full 90 minutes, had the most touches, the most accurate passes, created the most chances, made the most accurate crosses, and he was 2nd for most tackles. Looked very good playing in that number 10 role. I suspect that's where we'll see him going forward. As for Brighton, it's Yankuba Minte again. Another superb performance from him in the win over Chelsea. 3 attacking returns for him for the campaign. An assist against Chelsea, should have been 2, could easily have won a penalty, should have won a penalty. Really, 2.6 XGI for the season for him. 1.34 of that in the last 2 games. If he's not taken, maybe Diego Gomez might be worth a shout. He got his first start against Chelsea, having scored 4 goals in the Carabao Cup. Played as the number 10. Whether or not he'll start this one with Welbeck pushing for a start, time will tell. But see what happens. Could be worth a gamble, given that it's Wolves away. Could easily do some damage off the bench. And then we finish the weekend with the 4:30 p.m. BST game on Sunday between Brentford and Manchester City. Manchester City have won 3 of their last 4 games against the Bees, but City have won only 1 of the last 3 games at the G-Tech. Last season, Phil Foden scored twice for City in a 2-2 draw. As for Brentford, Dango Ouattara keeps doing the hokey-cokey in and out of the first team for Brentford. His first start in 3 against Manchester United, but he played very well. Ended up with 0.42 XG, 0.68 XGI, 11 attacking returns in the minutes equivalent of 22 games last season. So a 1 in 2 man on average. And Manchester City haven't looked hugely solid at the back. So I suspect Ouattara will fancy his chances, whatever flank he plays on. Could be up against Nunes, could be up against Rico Lewis, could be up against O'Reilly. And I think he'd fancy his chances against any of them. Mikkel Damsgaard played well as well against Manchester United. He ended up with 0.24 XGI. He had 12 returns last season, and he is across most of Brentford's set pieces. And of course, they are a big threat from set pieces, seeing as their manager is their former set piece coach. As for Manchester City, Jeremy Doku continues to suggest that he has finally become more than a dribbler. 4 assists in 3 games. Pep Guardiola said he's an incredible threat against teams with the low block. Really important. Now, Manchester City, they're going to face teams week in, week out who put up a low block. I don't think many teams are going to go for it against City. So that suggests that Doku will be a regular starter going forward. There is talk as well that Ryan Cherky could be set for a return sooner rather than later. There were reports last week that he was going to be involved in the game against Monaco. Those rumours have gone a bit quiet, so I don't know if he's had a setback. It's worth keeping an eye on to see if he's on the bench maybe against Monaco. He's still potentially worth picking up prior to the international break, given that he will have a couple of weeks to really up his fitness. I do think there's every chance when he is fit, he will be a regular starter for City. Scored on the opening day, of course, against Wolves, and they are desperately crying out for an option on the right-hand side. So Cherky is not a player that you should rule out willy-nilly. I think he's certainly one to consider. But overall, Jeremy Doku, if he's free, has to be the play here, although I suspect he will be taken in most leagues. So my Game Week 7 top picks by position. Robin Roofs has to be the goalkeeper of choice. He's prevented 3.08 goals already this season in 6 games, and that is tradition. He prevented 9.7 goals last season in 32 games playing in the Eredivisie. Alex Jimenez is an easy route into a strong defence if you fancy Bournemouth to beat Fulham at home. They've only conceded 1.2 XGC in their 3 home games so far this season against Wolves, Brighton and Newcastle. 2 of those sides, of course, fairly attack-minded. In midfield, I do have a sneaky suspicion that Evan Gassand might return this week. Absolutely very little evidence that he's going to based on his XGI over the course of the season, but he did get 0.36 XGI against Sunderland. He had 23 attacking returns last season. His minutes are increasing. Maybe this is the week he will show that the money that they've spent on him was worthwhile. And then up front, it's Fulham who we're looking at, because Raul Jimenez should start if he is declared fit, because we know that Muniz is out until after the international break. 294 minutes played this season across all competitions for Jimenez, which works out at 3.2 games, and he has scored 2 goals. So I'm sure he'll be fuming that he's lost his place to Muniz, but perhaps if he can get in the side on Saturday and do some damage, he can win that place back. So that is it for this whirlwind episode of the FPL Draft Zone. We've talked Game Week 6, we've talked Game Week 7, we've talked waiver picks, and we've picked our top 4 players for the waivers ahead of the deadline later this week. Keep an eye, of course, on everything that happens in midweek, because that could easily change things. If Cherky is on the bench for Manchester City, or even if he gets a start, perhaps he is worth a waiver over some of those other options that we've suggested. But right now, Evan Gassand is the man I've got my eye on. I don't know why. I've just got a suspicion this is going to be his week. If you want to get in touch with us and tell us who you're targeting on the waivers, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. We are at FPL Draft Zone on Instagram and on X. We're also on Blue Sky, and you can get in touch with us the traditional way as well. FPLDraftZone@outlook.com is our email address. In the meantime, we will return next week with more FPL draft chat. But until then, good luck in the waivers. Good luck in free agency. Good luck crafting that deal of the century, which will completely scupper your rival managers. And until next time, it is bye for now.